The rain had been falling non-stop since dawn, soaking the streets and blurring the city into shades of gray. Maya Thompson tightened her grip on her worn handbag as she stood outside the tall glass building, staring up at it with a mixture of fear and determination. The sign above the entrance gleamed coldly, Harrington Financial Group. She had never imagined she would end up here. Just 3 years ago, her life had been ordinary, busy, exhausting, but manageable. She had a small apartment, a steady job as a receptionist at a dental clinic, and most importantly, her 6-year-old son, Leo. Everything she did was for him. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every quiet tear shed behind closed doors. Then life unraveled. Leo's father had walked out when Leo was barely a year old, leaving behind excuses and unpaid bills. Maya had learned to be strong, to survive on her own. But when Leo fell ill, first with constant fatigue, then unexplained fevers, and finally a diagnosis that shattered her world, strength alone was no longer enough. The doctors had said the words gently, but they hit her like a storm. A rare blood disorder. Treatment available, expensive, urgent. Insurance barely covered a fraction. The clinic where she worked reduced hours. Savings vanished within months. Loans were denied. Friends helped where they could, but it was never enough. And so, Maya had written a letter. Not just any letter. A desperate, carefully worded plea sent to a foundation she barely believed would ever respond. The Harrington Outreach Fund, owned by one of the most powerful and private billionaire investors in the country, Alexander Harrington. She hadn't expected an answer, but 2 days ago an email arrived. "We have reviewed your request. Please come to our office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Now, standing in the lobby, Maya felt painfully out of place. Her coat was thin, her shoes scuffed, her hands trembling slightly as she checked the time on her phone. Leo was at school, unaware that his mother was fighting the biggest battle of their lives. She approached the reception desk, forcing herself to stand straight. "I'm here to see someone about a request I submitted," she said quietly. The receptionist glanced at the screen, then smiled politely. "Maya Thompson? Mr. Harrington is expecting you." Maya's heart skipped. Mr. Harrington himself? Before she could process that, she was guided toward an elevator and escorted to the top floor. The doors opened to a quiet, elegant space, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft lighting, and an atmosphere that felt almost unreal. Moments later, a man stepped out of an office, tall, calm, impeccably dressed. Alexander Harrington looked exactly like the man Maya had seen in news articles, composed, powerful, distant. His sharp eyes softened slightly when they landed on her. "Miss Thompson," he said evenly, "please, come in." Maya sat across from him, her palms damp, her heart pounding. She hadn't prepared for this. She had rehearsed her words 100 times, but now they tangled in her throat. Alexander folded his hands. "I read your letter. That alone nearly broke her. You wrote about your son," he continued. "Leo." Maya nodded, her voice shaking. "He's 6. He loves dinosaurs, and space, and pancakes on Sundays." She swallowed hard. "He's very brave. Braver than I am." Alexander listened silently. "I'm not asking for charity," Maya rushed on, tears finally spilling. I don't know where else to go. I've tried everything. I'd do anything. I just need time, a chance. He deserves that." The room was quiet except for her unsteady breathing. Alexander stood and walked toward the window, staring out at the rain-soaked city. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, thoughtful. "There's something you don't know, Miss Thompson." Maya's heart clenched. Fear crept in, rejection, conditions, disappointment. "Before we discuss funding," he said slowly, turning back to her, "I need to ask you something. It may sound strange." Maya nodded numbly. "Anything." He studied her face carefully. "Your son's father, what was his name?" The question caught her off guard. "Why does that matter?" Alexander hesitated for the first time. "Please, just tell me." Maya exhaled shakily. His name was Daniel Reed. He left years ago. We haven't heard from him since. Alexander's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkened with something unreadable. Shock? Recognition? He sat back down slowly. Maya, he said, choosing his words carefully, there is a possibility that your letter didn't come to me by coincidence. Her heart pounded. What do you mean? Alexander reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an old photograph. He placed it between them. Maya stared at it and felt the world tilt. The man in the picture looked just like Leo. Same eyes, same smile, same dimple in his left cheek. That, Alexander said quietly, is my younger brother. Maya's breath caught painfully in her chest. And if I'm not mistaken, he continued, his voice thick with disbelief, your son may not be as alone in this world as you think. The rain outside intensified, thunder rumbling in the distance. Maya could barely breathe. Her desperate request had brought her here for help, but instead, it had uncovered a truth that would change everything. Maya stared at the photograph as if it might disappear if she blinked too hard. Her fingers trembled as she reached toward it, then pulled back, afraid to touch it, afraid to confirm what her heart was already screaming. That's impossible, she whispered. Alexander Harrington didn't interrupt. He watched her carefully, his own thoughts clearly racing. Years of discipline and control barely masked the shock beneath his calm exterior. My brother's name was Daniel Harrington, he said quietly. He left home over a decade ago. We had a falling out. He cut contact with the entire family. Maya shook her head slowly. The man I knew was Daniel Reed. That's what he told me. He worked odd jobs. He never talked about family, never mentioned money. Alexander let out a slow breath. Daniel Reed wasn't his real name. It was a name he used after he disappeared. Silence stretched between them. Maya felt dizzy. Memories flooded back. Daniel's reluctance to talk about his past, the way he avoided questions about family, how uncomfortable he became whenever wealth or ambition was mentioned. Why would he lie? She asked, her voice cracking. Why would he leave? Alexander's eyes lowered. Because my brother hated the world I came from, hated wealth, hated control. He believed money destroyed people. When our father died, Daniel refused to take anything. He walked away. Maya swallowed. He walked away from us too. Alexander flinched at that. I didn't know, he said softly. If I had known he had a child. But you didn't, Maya interrupted, tears slipping down her cheeks. And neither did I know he was your brother. All I knew was that one day he said he couldn't stay, that Leo and I deserved better than him. Her hands clenched in her lap. He left before Leo was even 2. Alexander leaned back, visibly shaken. And then, 3 years ago, Daniel died. Maya froze. Died? She whispered. Alexander nodded grimly. Car accident. Overseas. By the time we identified him, it was too late to ask questions. Maya's chest felt hollow. She pressed a hand against it as grief, old and new, crashed over her all at once. So Leo's father is gone, she said, voice breaking. And now you're telling me his uncle is one of the richest men in the country? Alexander didn't look proud. He looked haunted. I never wanted this to come out like this, he said. Through desperation, through illness, through pain. Maya laughed weakly through tears. Neither did I. She wiped her face, trying to steady herself. What does this mean for Leo? Alexander leaned forward, his gaze intense but gentle. It means he's family, and it means I'm responsible, whether my brother wanted it or not. Maya stiffened instinctively. I'm not asking you to replace his father. I know, Alexander said quickly, and I would never take him from you. But I want to help, fully, not as charity, as family. The word hit her harder than anything else. Family. She had spent years feeling alone, fighting battles no one saw. Now suddenly a door had opened, but she wasn't sure what waited on the other side. "I need time," she said honestly. "This is a lot." "Take all the time you need," Alexander replied. "But there's one thing I won't wait on." He pressed a button on his desk. "Leo's treatment," he said firmly. "It will be covered. Every procedure, every specialist. Immediately." Maya gasped, standing abruptly. "You don't have to." "I do," he interrupted gently. "And I want to." Her knees buckled. She sank back into the chair, sobbing openly now, not from fear but from relief so overwhelming it hurt. For the first time, she cried, "I don't feel like I'm drowning." Alexander stood, walking around the desk, not as a billionaire, not as an investor, but as a man who had just discovered he had a nephew. "You're not," he said softly. "You're not alone anymore." Later that evening, Aya sat beside Leo's bed, watching him sleep. His small chest rose and fell steadily, unaware that his world had shifted forever. She brushed his hair back gently. "Did you know," she whispered, "that you have an uncle?" Leo stirred slightly but didn't wake. Maya's phone buzzed softly. A message from Alexander. "Tomorrow, if you're comfortable, I'd like to meet Leo." Her heart clenched. She typed back slowly. "He's shy, but he's kind," Alexander replied almost instantly. "Then he's exactly like his father." Maya closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. For years her desperation had felt like a dead end, but now it had led her to a truth she never expected. And the real discovery, she realized, wasn't wealth or bloodlines. It was that sometimes, even in the darkest moments, life still held the power to surprise you. Maya barely slept that night. She lay awake listening to the quiet hum of the apartment, watching shadows shift across the ceiling as her thoughts raced. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Leo's face, his smile, his bravery, his small hand gripping hers during hospital visits. And now, layered over those memories, was the image of Alexander Harrington standing in that glass office, holding a photograph that had cracked her world open. Family. The words still felt unreal. By morning she had made a decision, not because she felt ready, but because Leo deserved honesty, and because running from the truth had never saved anyone. Leo sat at the small kitchen table, swinging his legs as he ate cereal. His cheeks were pale, but his eyes were bright. "Mom?" he asked suddenly. "Why were you crying last night?" Maya froze, then forced a gentle smile. "Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're thinking very hard." Leo nodded, satisfied. "Okay." She sat across from him, resting her elbows on the table. "Leo, do you remember your dad?" He frowned slightly. "A little. He smelled like coffee, and he used to make dinosaur noises." Maya's throat tightened. "That's right." She hesitated, then continued softly. "What if I told you you have an uncle? Someone who didn't know about you before but wants to meet you now?" Leo's eyes widened. "Like family?" "Yes," she said, heart pounding. "Family. Is he nice?" Leo asked. Maya smiled. "I think he is. Then I want to meet him," Leo said simply, returning to his cereal. Children, she realized, accepted truths adults struggled with. Alexander arrived that afternoon without an entourage, without security, without the trappings of his wealth. He stood outside Maya's modest apartment building in a simple coat, hands clasped tightly in front of him like a man waiting for judgment. When Maya opened the door, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. "You don't have to stay long," she said quietly. "I'll stay only as long as he's comfortable," Alexander replied. Leo peeked from behind Maya's leg, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "Hi," Alexander said, lowering himself to one knee. "I'm Alex." Leo tilted his head. "My mom said you're my uncle." Alexander smiled gently. "That's right, and I'm very happy to finally meet you." Leo studied him carefully, then held out the dinosaur. "This is Rex. He protects me." Alexander accepted it with surprising seriousness. Then I'm honored to meet Rex too. Something in Leo relaxed. They sat together on the couch, coloring quietly. Alexander listened more than he spoke, letting Leo lead the conversation. He learned about dinosaurs, space rockets, and Leo's dislike of broccoli. He noticed the way Leo leaned into Maya when he grew tired, and the way Maya watched every movement like a shield. At one point, Leo looked up at Alexander. "Did you know my dad?" The room went still. Alexander swallowed. "Yes, I did. Was he good?" Maya's breath caught. Alexander didn't hesitate. He was. He was stubborn, brave, and he loved very deeply, even when he didn't know how to stay. Leo nodded thoughtfully. "Mom says that's okay." Maya closed her eyes. Over the next weeks, Alexander became a quiet presence in their lives. Not overwhelming, not intrusive. He arranged the best medical team for Leo without ever making Maya feel small or indebted. He sat with her in hospital waiting rooms, learning the rhythms of fear and hope she had lived with for years. 1 a.m. Afternoon, as Leo slept after treatment, Maya finally broke. "You can't fix everything," she said softly. "I don't want him to grow up thinking money saves people." Alexander looked at her, eyes steady. "Money doesn't save people," he said. "People save people. Money just removes obstacles." She studied him. "Why are you really doing this?" He didn't answer immediately. "Because I failed my brother," he said finally, "and because I won't fail his son." Tears slid down Maya's face. "Daniel left because he felt small, because he didn't belong in your world." Alexander nodded. "And now I see that he built a better one. With you." That was the moment Maya realized something important. Alexander Harrington wasn't trying to take control. He was trying to make amends. But the truth has weight, and secrets don't stay buried forever. One evening, Maya received a letter. No return address, no name, just 3 words written in shaky ink. "He doesn't deserve him." Her hands shook. She showed Alexander the note the next day. His expression darkened. "My family's lawyers," he said quietly. "There are people who believe Leo is a liability, a complication." Fear surged through her. Are they going to take him? Alexander stood instantly. Never. But Maya saw it then. The danger, the power, the world she had stepped into without realizing the cost. Her desperate request had led to an unbelievable discovery. But discovery, she was learning, came with consequences, and the hardest choices were still ahead. Maya read it again and again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less threatening. He doesn't deserve him. No signature, no explanation, just judgment, cold and deliberate. That night, she sat on the edge of Leo's bed watching him sleep. His small fingers curled around the blanket, his breathing slow and even. She had faced poverty, illness, and abandonment, but the thought of someone trying to take him away ignited a fear unlike anything she had ever known. The next morning, she made a decision. When Alexander arrived later that day, she didn't offer him coffee or small talk. "I need to know the truth," she said firmly. "All of it, not just the parts that are easy." Alexander studied her, then nodded. "That's fair." They sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, 2 adults from very different worlds united by one child. "My family's empire wasn't built on kindness," Alexander began. "It was built on control, inheritance, and image. A child born outside of that structure, especially to a woman they don't know, represents risk." Maya's jaw tightened. "To them, Leo is a problem." "Yes," Alexander admitted. "To me, he's my nephew." She crossed her arms. "And if they decide to fight me legally, they won't win," Alexander said immediately. "Leo is your son. You are his mother. Nothing changes that. But they can make our lives miserable," she said. "Courts, media, pressure." Alexander's silence confirmed her fear. "I didn't ask for this," Maya whispered. "I just wanted my child to live." "I know," he said softly. "And I'm sorry this world found you." She met his gaze. "Then protect him, not with money, with truth." Alexander exhaled slowly. Then you need to know what my brother did. Her heart skipped. What do you mean? He left behind something, Alexander said. Something he never told you about. That evening, Alexander brought a small metal box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, written in Daniel's handwriting. He sent these to me, Alexander said. Never mailed them, never signed them. I found them after his death. Maya picked one up with shaking hands. If you're reading this, I wasn't strong enough to come back. Tears streamed down her face as she read. Daniel had known. He had known about Leo's illness. Had followed from afar. He had been working overseas, sending money anonymously through charities, trying to help without re-entering a world he feared would destroy his son. I didn't leave because I didn't love him, one letter read. I left because I loved him too much to let him grow up in a shadow. Maya sobbed openly now. He was trying, she whispered, in the only way he knew how. Alexander nodded, his eyes wet. And now it's my turn. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Alexander's family called a private meeting. Maya insisted on attending. The room was grand, cold, and filled with faces that assessed her like a transaction. Lawyers, relatives, power dressed as civility. This child complicates succession, one man said flatly. He's sick, a woman added quietly, and vulnerable. Maya stood. He's a human being, she said, her voice shaking but strong. And he is loved. That should be enough. Alexander stepped beside her. If Leo is not welcome, he said calmly, then neither am I. Gasps filled the room. Alexander continued, unwavering. I will step down, liquidate, walk away, just like my brother did. Silence. In that moment, Maya realized something astonishing. The man who controlled billions was willing to lose everything, for love, and that was the real inheritance. That night, Maya held Leo close as he slept, her heart pounding with fear and hope. Her desperate request had uncovered bloodlines, secrets, and battles she never asked for. But it had also revealed something far greater, the true meaning of family, and in the quiet darkness she felt certain. The final discovery was still to come. Spring had arrived, painting the city in soft greens and pastel blooms. The harsh gray of winter was gone, replaced by warmth and the gentle hum of life returning to the streets. For Maya Thompson, life was beginning to feel that way too, fragile, uncertain, but filled with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. Leo was awake that morning, sitting at the kitchen table with a big smile on his face. His energy was contagious, his laughter filling the small apartment as he recounted his dreams from the night before. Maya watched him, her chest tight with emotion. Just a few months ago, his health had been tenuous. Now, thanks to Alexander's intervention and the dedicated care of his medical team, he was thriving. Alexander arrived at the apartment later that morning, as he had every day since their lives had collided. But today was different. Today, there was a quiet intensity in his expression, a determination that Maya recognized immediately. Maya, he said softly, closing the door behind him. We have the final meeting with the lawyers and my family this afternoon. Are you ready? She nodded, though her stomach churned. As ready as I'll ever be. Alexander took her hand gently. No matter what happens, remember this. Leo is yours, always. Nothing can change that. Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. The reassurance was needed, but it didn't erase the tension she felt. She had come to respect Alexander deeply, not just as the man who had saved her son's life, but as someone who had fought for truth and family with unwavering courage. The meeting was held in a grand boardroom at Harrington Financial Group. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, reflecting off polished mahogany tables. Lawyers sat at every available seat, their expressions careful, calculating. Members of Alexander's family sat across from them, expressions polite but cold. Miss Thompson, one of the elder Harringtons, began. We have reviewed the circumstances. While Leo's connection to the family is unfortunate, our concern is primarily for his well-being and the potential impact on the family estate. Maya swallowed hard. His well-being? She repeated. Ted. He's a 6-year-old child. His well-being is not determined by wealth or property. It's determined by love, care, and safety. He is my son. He deserves to grow up feeling safe and cherished. That is my only concern. Alexander stood beside her, tall and resolute, and I support her fully. Leo is my nephew, and I will not allow anyone to threaten his security or her right as his mother. This family will accept that, or I will remove myself entirely. The room fell silent. The lawyers whispered among themselves, and the Harrington elders exchanged glances that spoke volumes. But Alexander did not waver. He had made his choice. Love, responsibility, and family mattered more than wealth or legacy. After hours of discussion, negotiation, and careful review, the decision was clear. Leo's rights as Maya's son were upheld unequivocally. Alexander's family, recognizing the futility of fighting a man who refused to compromise where family was concerned, relented. Maya let out a shaky breath, relief flooding her in waves. Tears pricked her eyes as she hugged Alexander tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." He hugged her back, his grip strong and reassuring. "We did this together, and will continue to do so for Leo." Over the following weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Maya's apartment no longer felt like a place of struggle, but a home filled with laughter, learning, and the promise of security. Alexander spent more time with them, not as a distant billionaire uncle, but as a loving family member, guiding without controlling, nurturing without overstepping. Leo thrived. His medical treatments completed successfully, his energy boundless. He adored Alexander, seeing him not as a figure of power, but as someone who loved him unconditionally. The bond between uncle and nephew grew daily, each laugh, each story, each shared adventure strengthening the invisible threads that tied their lives together. One afternoon, as the sun spilled gold across the apartment floor, Maya sat with Alexander in the small living room. Leo was sprawled on the rug, reading a book with a dinosaur on the cover. "You know," Maya said softly, "I never imagined a desperate letter could change our lives so completely." Alexander smiled, taking her hand. "Sometimes the most unbelievable discoveries come from moments of desperation. You reached out because you had no choice. And in doing so, you revealed a truth that none of us expected, that family isn't just about blood, but about love, courage, and persistence." Maya squeezed his hand. "I don't know how to ever repay you. You don't need to," he said gently. "You gave Leo life, love, and safety. You gave me the chance to be a part of something meaningful that is reward enough." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of gratitude and wonder. "I guess the real discovery wasn't the money, or even the connection to your family. It was you, and the fact that love can make a difference where everything else fails." Alexander nodded, smiling. "Exactly. And the journey doesn't end here. We'll continue to grow, together. And Leo, he'll have everything he needs to thrive, surrounded by people who care about him." Leo bounded over, flopping onto the couch beside them. "Mom, Uncle Alex, look at this." He held up a drawing of a spaceship piloted by a dinosaur, both smiling and waving. Maya laughed, ruffling his hair, while Alexander studied the drawing with mock seriousness. "Ah," he said, pointing. "The captain and CO pilot. Excellent teamwork. Very strategic. You'll make a fine leader one day, Leo." Leo beamed proudly. "We're going to explore space together." Maya leaned against Alexander, feeling the warmth of him beside her, the comfort of knowing that they were all safe, all together. The unbelievable discovery, the fact that Leo was connected to a family she never knew existed, had opened doors to love, trust, and stability she had never thought possible. And in that moment, she realized the truth she had been searching for all along. Sometimes, a desperate request doesn't just solve a problem. Sometimes, It uncovers a hidden world, reveals unexpected love, and shows you that even in the darkest moments, life can surprise you in the most extraordinary ways. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the apartment, Maya, Alexander, and Leo sat together, laughter and conversation blending into the quiet comfort of home. Their journey had been difficult, painful, and full of uncertainty, but it had led them to something irreplaceable: family, not defined by wealth or legacy, but by heart, courage, and the power of love. And as Leo drifted off to sleep that night, dreaming of dinosaurs and spaceships, Maya held him close, whispering a promise she would never forget, that no matter what challenges came their way, they would face them together, as a family, whole and unbreakable.